Alright, welcome to the video on production possibilities curve. Our essential question for this section is how do we show the economic problem of scarcity on our graph? Basically, the PPC, or the production possibilities curve, is showing scarcity on a graph. Couple things to remember when using economic models. Economists do these things. Step 1, economists explain the concept in words. So we explain the concept of scarcity. Step 2, economists use numbers as examples. So they come up with some numbers to use as examples of the idea of scarcity. Then 3, generate graphs from those numbers. They take the numbers and they plot them on graphs. And then step 4, make generalizations using the graphs. So first, what is the production possibilities curve? A production possibilities graph or curve or frontier, they're all the same thing, is a model that shows alternate ways that an economy can use its scarce resources. This model graphically demonstrates scarcity, trade-offs, opportunity costs, and efficiency. Before I show you the graph, there's 4 key assumptions that you need to know that that graph assumes. Number 1, only 2 goods can be produced. We're just looking at 2 goods, okay? 2, full employment of resources. These are the possibilities of production for those 2 goods, assuming that all resources are being used. 3, there's a fixed amount of resources. We only have so many, and that's it. 4, there's a fixed amount of technology. This is what we know how to do, and this is it. There's nothing's changing. We're assuming that there's no changes. That's called Saussures paribus. All things remaining the same. This is what we're going with. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. We're going to start up here with the production possibilities table. Here, assuming, let's say you own a business, and your business can make bikes or computers. Here are all the possible productions that you can make of bikes and computers, all the possible amounts of bikes and computers that you can make based on the amount of resources that you have, that fixed amount of resources. So A, B, C, D, and E is a point, and at each point it represents the specific combo of goods that can be produced given full employment of your resources. So we're saying that if you make 14 bikes, you can only make 0 computers. Or if you make 0 bikes, you can make 8 computers, and so forth, okay? Now, what economists do is they take these numbers, these examples, and they put them on a graph. And in this case, they put bikes on the y-axis, computers on the x-axis, and then they take those numbers and they plot them. Here's 14 and 0, here's 8 and 0, and they've taken all of the numbers in between and put them in the right place. Make sense? Okay. And then you connect the dots, and this curve right here, this line, this is called the production possibilities curve. It's all the production possibilities that you can make of bikes and computers if you use all the resources at full employment. Okay? Now, back on the last slide, I said that the PPC can graphically demonstrate scarcity, trade-offs, opportunity costs, and efficiency. And it does. Scarcity, there's only so many resources that you have. So you're not going to make an unlimited amount of bikes and computers. You can only make a certain amount because resources are scarce. Trade-offs. You make trade-offs when you decide how many bikes and computers to make. If you make 14 bikes, you're trading off those computers that you could have made. Or if you make 8 computers, you're trading off those bikes that you could have made. That's how that works. And then opportunity costs is where you look at the opportunity costs when you move from choice A to choice B to choice C to choice D. For example, the opportunity cost of moving from A to B, from 14 computers to 12 computers, and from 0 computers to 2 computers, the cost is what you lose. So you gain those 2 computers, but what did you lose? 2 bikes. Okay? And economists take it a step further and they look at the per unit cost also. So the per unit opportunity cost from A to B is the opportunity cost, what you lost, the 2 bikes, divided by the units gained, what you gained, the 2 computers. So if we lost 2 bikes and we gained 2 computers, then the per unit cost, when you do the division, is 1 bike, okay? So we're looking, remember the cost is what you lose in order to gain the next thing. All right, and then efficiency. Production possibilities curve is all about efficient use of resources. If you're on the line, we're assuming you're using your resources to the fullest way possible, and that's called efficient, okay? So at any point, A, B, C, D, or E, efficient. If you're over here in F, you only made 5 bikes and 2 computers, you could have made more. You could have made 6 computers and 5 bikes instead. So that's called inefficient, or it's called unemployment, or it's called a recession. Because if you have a bunch of people unemployed, we're in a recession, okay? And then the other thing to look at is you cannot have a point out here past the curve where G is. That's unattainable, impossible, doesn't work that way, you don't have enough resources. And that's in the short run. Again, assuming that you have a fixed amount of resources, you can't get out there, okay? So, I think I've got everything on that graph. Now we're going to look at some application of this graph. Okay, there are 2 kinds of opportunity costs when you're looking at a production possibilities curve. If the costs are the same at every point, you're always losing 1 every single time, that's called constant opportunity costs, the same, okay? And that happens when resources are easily adaptable for producing either good. This is really rare. So if you make 1 more pizza, you only lose 1 calzone. Then when you make 2 more pizzas, you only lose 1 calzone again. And then when you move from 2 to 3, you just lose 1 calzone. You're always losing the same amount no matter what. That's constant opportunity cost, and it only happens when things are related. Calzones and pizzas use the same ingredients to make. So that's where you would get constant opportunity cost. And again, per unit opportunity cost from the last slide is the same at each point, okay? The result is a straight PPC line. It's always going to be a straight line if it's constant opportunity cost, because you're going to increase equally. It makes a straight line. Now, if you don't increase equally, you have increasing opportunity cost. You're going to have a curved line or a concave line that's bowed out, and that is because as you produce more of any good, the opportunity cost increases. So to move from here to here, you're only losing 1. But then when you move from here to here, you're losing 2. And then when you move from here to here, you're losing 3 or 4. And it just keeps increasing and going up. That's increasing opportunity cost. As you produce more of any good, the opportunity cost will increase. Because resources are not easily adaptable to producing both goods. This happens when the 2 goods that you're looking at are different, and the resources used to make them are different. For example, robots and pizzas. Robots take metal and machinery and a certain kind of technology to make. Pizza takes flour and tomatoes and cheese and things like that. 2 totally different products. So as you shift, if you own the business, you're making robots, and then as you shift towards making pizza, you're going to have to revamp your factory, change maybe some employees that know how to do things better, have better skills. So your resources are going to be different, all right? And as you change to making more pizzas, it's going to cost more for you to do that. So the result is a bowed out or concave PPC, okay? This is rare. You hardly ever see a straight line PPC. This is normal, and this is what we'll look at in macro, the bowed out one. Okay. Shifting PPC. Now remember the 4 assumptions of the PPC. Only 2 goods can be produced, full employment of resources, fixed resources, those 4 factors of production, and fixed technology. Okay, when you look at a PPC, that's what you're assuming. But what if there's a change? What's going to happen? the PPC will shift. If there is a change in one of these two, the PPC is either going to shift out or shift in. These are robots and pizzas, okay? And these are the three things that can shift a PPC. Change in resource, quality or quantity. If we find more oil for our machines or whatever, then the curve will shift out. If the oil that we find somehow is we can use it more efficiently, or it's better oil or something like that, the thing will also shift out. If there's a hurricane and all of the tomatoes are lost, PPC is going to shift in because there's less resources. Okay. 2, a change in technology. If somebody invents a better pizza oven, that'll shift that curve out just for pizza, but it'll shift it out. So it'll look more like this, okay? And 3, a change in trade, which we'll talk more about later, but that'll shift the curve out also. And the last concept you need to get for production possibilities curve is the idea that capital goods, producing more capital goods, will have more growth in the future. A country that produces more capital goods will have more growth in the future. For example, here's Panama. They favor consumer goods. So this is their original PPC, and at this point, they're making more consumer goods than they are capital goods. Now, if you remember, capital goods are things that go into making a consumer good, and consumer goods are things that you and I consume, things that we use. So if you make more consumer goods, more food, more clothes, more things that we buy, then you'll have growth, but it won't be that much, okay? Let's say Mexico favors making capital goods. So here's the original PPC. Their production is right here, let's say, okay? In the more capital goods side. They're making more tractors and more plows and more computers and more things to help them make more consumer goods in the future. Because they now have, let's say it's the future now they have more items that'll help them make more capital goods, they can produce more capital goods. So if we look at their long-term future growth, their PPC is going to go out much more than Panama, who's favoring consumer goods, because they have invested it, let's say, in their future and are building things that'll help them produce more later on. So capital goods, producing more capital goods will increase your future growth. You'll see more growth in the future. Okay? Remember those concepts about the PPC? Look at your text, look at the PowerPoints, get the PPC down so that you can get these concepts. All right?